And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, interim GM at WEIU. My co-host is Annalicia Haynes.
Hi, everyone.
And we have a whole slew of guests today. We're very excited. We're going to be talking about the Arts Walk, the Art Cemetery Walk. And in the building today, Marita Metzke. Welcome, Marita.
Thank you very much.
She's from the Academy of Lifelong Learning here on campus of WEIU. Charlotte England. She is the president of the Coles County Arts Council.
Thank you, Jeff.
Also teaches English here at Eastern. I'll give her a shameless plug there. And Mr. Kevin Bauman, and with his silky baritone voice. So
You said it.
I said it. Good.
Oh, my
Welcome,
goodness.
Kevin.
Well, thank you for that.
Artist historian, is that a good way to say it? Say it?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. Well, the event's coming up, so I'm just going to throw this out there so we get it. Not everybody knows what it, in case anybody doesn't know what's going on with this event coming up September 28th. So just let's talk in generalities about your event and what it is and all that. Somebody has to talk then.
Well, basically, we're going to have several portions, and this is such a unique opportunity for myself and my brother, who is going to be my co-presenter, Paul Bauman. And what we're going to do is talk about art specifically in the cemetery. And, Paul and I have been very interested in art for many years in the cemeteries, but we've never had a chance to actually talk to people about it, to share it with the community. So it's a great opportunity, and we're super excited about it. There will be several portions, like I said. There will be a portion first in the library that's going to be sort of a lecture type situation. We'll then have a lunch break, and then we'll go to Mound and Roselawn cemeteries, where we'll do about a 2-hour cemetery walk, where we'll actually go through and put to use some of the things hopefully we've learned in the classroom session. And then finally, we will end up at Old City Cemetery for a couple of historical reenactments, and just a bit more on arts in the cemetery.
Okay.
Nice.
Now, certainly the Coles County Arts Council got involved in this, so tell us kind of like your involvement and how excited you are to see this program.
I'm extremely excited to see this program. We began talking about it over a year ago with Carolyn Stevens, who is the director of
She's
the program.
here today.
And who's sitting out in the hallway to make sure we don't all mess up while we're here. We were looking for a way to showcase local history and also to draw in the arts. It's important to draw those two things together. And our ability to do that actually has been instrumental in getting a grant from the Illinois Humanities Foundation, who are helping to underwrite this event for us on the Saturday. When we started talking about it, we wanted to think about ways of engaging people in the past, but also providing inspiration for current artists. And part of the way we've done that is to run a photo competition. So while I'm here on the radio being listened to, I'd like to say thank you to all those people who took their cameras out and took some gorgeous images in local cemeteries and shared them with us. The results are in a show that's up at Jackson Avenue Coffee, and we'll be there for the month of September.
That's awesome.
I love that. Yeah.
And then, where did the Academy of Lifelong Learning, your involvement with this program?
Well, I was really excited when Carolyn suggested that we partner in this event because, as most people know, the Academy of Lifelong Learning loves to focus on local interest and history and education for personal development, personal interest. And an event like this offers several avenues using different areas of your brain. It involves visuals, it involves music, there's storytelling, there's history. And it's really fun learning about something unique like this with others who may have similar interests. It really enhances the experience and makes it fun.
Now, I want to go back to Kevin. You said that when this thing begins on September 28th, it's going to be at the library, you said?
Yeah, first at the Charleston Public Library.
And they get a lecture. So in that lecture, are you kind of setting the table for what they're going to be doing the rest of the afternoon?
Exactly. That's exactly the aim of the lecture portion, is to, I think all of us have been to cemeteries, and we all have some experience with them. But I don't think a lot of people really think about art in the cemetery in the way that maybe we're going to try to explore on that Saturday. And so, Annalicia, you had even said that you had never thought about arts in the cemetery before as a real topic. And let me tell you, there is a lot of art in a cemetery. And even a fairly small cemetery like Mound Roselawn has so many neat carvings and beautiful letterings and design work and etchings. We're just so excited to have the chance, excuse me if I can speak at all, but my co-contributors were saying here that we're just so excited to have this opportunity to share with people who who are like-minded and who are all interested and inquisitive about cemeteries. I think the opportunity is awesome.
So when you've been out to the 2 or 3 cemeteries that are going to be in this the Charleston one here, so do you let them know, hey, I want you to look for this, or do you kind of keep it more open? Hey, how do you tell the folks that?
Well, during the actual walk portion, I mean, it will be very much guided by my brother and I, and that we, if we start to open up to too many questions or too much just general, conversation, I don't think we would get to all of the things and also be able to cover the distance we're going to cover, because it is a pretty decent walk. I mean, we're going to cover about a mile of distance in the cemetery. And so mostly that's what we will be focused on is letting people see for themselves, but kind of trying to guide them to see, as you were saying, what we kind of want them to see, but with the bigger goal being that in the future, when they go back to the cemetery or other cemeteries, that they can apply these same things themselves.
I was telling Charlotte before you all were on earlier this year, I never really thought about Arts at the Cemetery, much like what Alicia said. And then when you go back to the cemetery, you really start to notice things, and you kind of like, I see what they meant, and there is a lot of different things in a cemetery. So with that being said, now the 3 of you might be able to all answer this, but for an event like this, first time I believe it's happened in Charleston, how do you kind of set your expectations or your goals, or what do you want to see September 28th from the public?
Well, I can start with that. What we want to see is some people coming out and finding things interesting that they hadn't thought were sources of interest. I think that moment of exciting discovery, of seeing something and saying, wow, is what we're really hoping for. Turnout, we'd like to see a good turnout, and we're hoping for one. 50 people would be great, 100 people would be magnificent. But regardless, what we do hope is that the folks who come there come to the day with an open mind and leave it able to see things that they haven't seen before. I can speak from the experience of running the photo competition that seeing what other people see when they walk into a cemetery has really expanded the way I feel when I go there. I'm a person who likes cemeteries. I walk in them. I'm not creeped out by them. A few people actually contributed images to the contest and said, I ran in, I took my picture, I ran out again. So that was interesting. But I guess it would be good.
Yeah, I mean, there's that stigma about, creepy
and
cemeteries.
this kind of lowers that stigma. Exactly.
Yeah, it does.
Absolutely.
It does. And
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's most fascinating about this event is that, one, I'm sure there's a lot of people who wouldn't think about cemeteries being artful or being of art. I don't know how you would say that.
Or being a place to visit.
Yeah, but thinking back to when I go visit a cemetery to visit someone's grave, you do see those big tombstones or headstones and the carvings in there. I mean, that has to mean something. It's not, you just don't just randomly pick something from, I feel like that it has some sort of connection.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, most of the time, what people put on their headstone is a direct reflection of who they were, of their ontogeny, of everything they've known in life, and also their likes and their loves. So, one thing that's very common to see, and kind of near and dear to my heart as well, is a Cubs logo, for example, on a headstone. Big baseball nut, can't explain it, but that kind of love and devotion, when somebody puts it on their headstone, I mean, it tells you something about them. And so hopefully we can do the same thing through all different sorts of arts and different expressions on these stones, where we can look and say, okay, maybe this symbolizes this, or this has to do with this, and again, try to open the viewer's eyes to that same ideal.
And now I just get angry because I think about cemeteries that get vandalized. Those old, and because I think about old tombstones, the ones that were built in like the 1800s and further back even, because I know Charleston has some like that too. But that just makes me angry now that I think about this and know that this has some sort of significance.
Something that I think is really fascinating in old cemeteries is the dates and the descriptions that families would put, and that there's stories, and that's what fascinates me, is the stories behind those, the images and the dates.
Yeah, I know the last time you were here, and that's one of the things I wanted to get to next, so you perfect setup, Marita, thank you, is that you were looking for people with ancestors buried here in Coles County, because you wanted to be able to tell some of these stories maybe at the event on the 28th. Did you find some of those? Did people come forward and say, I want to be involved, and is there any stories you maybe can tease us with today or not? That was putting you on the spot a little bit.
Well, I would say that On this particular walk, we haven't had a whole lot of people reaching out to us. Now, I have spent a fair amount of hours in the cemetery in preparation for this, and you'd be surprised. You get a lot of people come up to you even then who are interested. Like, what are you doing? I see you guys have flashlights and you have brushes. What the heck are you doing, to a monument? And I don't blame them, because we do look kind of odd, my brother and I, out there with our equipment. But and some of them were very interested. In fact, a few folks who stopped out and talked to us while we were out there in prepreparation have said, "Hey, I'm going to come now. I want to see this.
Oh, really? That's cool.
This will be a really neat experience, I think." And so that was kind of exciting to us, and rewarding as well to be able to talk to somebody and then have them think, "Oh, these guys are all right. I'll come listen to them maybe."
They're not ghost hunters.
The image on the flyer for the event, right, was a family tomb, and one of the first people who signed up to come is related to the person
really?
who's on that flyer.
Just happenstance,
cool.
I mean, pure luck.
He just saw it and said, "Okay, you're going to talk about this. I'm coming."
That's cool.
And you got a picture right there.
So
Yes.
Go ahead.
I know earlier it was mentioned that part of, I guess, the goal with this event is to kind of bridge art and history, right? So what is the significance of bridging the two?
Well, there's art in the cemetery changes over time, and it changes with societal ideals and also, with our morality and all kinds of different things. I mean, I'll give you, for instance, I've seen on modern stones beer cans. I guarantee you would not see a picture of a Budweiser can 100 years ago on a headstone. Even if you were a very big alcoholic, beverage consumer, you just probably wouldn't have done that out of certain respects or feelings about, society.
And a sign of the times.
And
for
a sign
sure,
of the times.
yeah.
So today you'll see things like that sometimes. I've seen Pink Floyd songs on stones. I have seen Rihanna on a stone. So, when you think about things like that, and that ties into what you guys do here, of course, because you play hit mix. But, people connect to different things. So people, they connect to music. And if that certain song was something that they loved or connect to, sometimes they literally put it on their headstone.
Is there something that you've seen that that goes all the way through time, like music or something, a flower? I mean, what are those things that just are timeless?
Well, anytime you talk about a small one's grave, it's kind of a sensitive subject. But there's this particular stone at Mount Roselawn that stands out in my mind when you say that, because it's for a very young infant that passed some years ago. And on the back of that stone is the children's favorite, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And so, some things are timeless, and some things, continue just because of the tradition and the history of it.
Wow. What other? I want to go back to the photos for a little bit. How many people submitted them, and did they go? Were they only allowed to go to the cemeteries involved in the walk, or could they go to any cemetery?
No, they could go to any cemetery that was reasonably local to Central Illinois.
Yeah.
We asked for Coles County residents to be the ones who were involved. We ended up with about 47 images,
Okay.
28 of which were chosen in a juried process by Phil Glosser to hang up in the coffee shop. And we have images, many of them from local cemeteries, but some also from places in Effingham.
Okay. What did anything stand out? Or was there? I don't want you to pick a winner, but
No.
did a couple images you're like, did you have like that old wow factor? I always say it's the wow factor.
There were a lot of wow factor moments, and perhaps the biggest one was the different way that people responded to what there was to take a picture of. So when you look at what's on the wall, there are a lot of photos of headstones, many of them beautifully lit. Some of them are photos of partial headstones or partial monuments that capture just a piece of something. There's a great photo that Jessica Mertz took of the statue of Christ from a particular angle so that it looks like he's looking down on you. And there is a sense of an individual response to different pieces. There are some flowers that people took photographs of in the cemetery, so a lot of people went there to see it as a beautiful natural place. There's a great shot of some ironwork. Actually, there are a couple of shots of the same ironwork down at Chambers. People obviously found that fence really intriguing. But so some people were looking at it from a kind of what story does this picture tell, and some people from a what kind of other things are there associated with the cemetery. And it makes you think about the place as a bigger place.
There you go. And those pictures are all up right now at the Jack downtown
Yeah.
Charleston, if you want to take a look at those. Now, the other thing as part of this project was there's exhibits that are kind of up and around, leading up to the 28th. Can someone talk about the exhibits, or Marina does not seem to like that So
There is an exhibit going up in Booth Library, and it will move down to the Carnegie Library on the day that we do.
Okay.
And someone else is working on an exhibit to put out in the train station in Mattoon.
and will this just be kind of like about the Arts of the Cemetery Walk, or is it going to be, what are they
It's
exactly?
about the subject of cemeteries in general. The exhibit at EIU will also have a component about mortality rates and healthcare, and then it will go from there to cemeteries and burial customs. So it'll be sort of a larger historical exhibit. I believe the one going up in the Mattoon train station will be more along the lines that our walk is, looking at monuments and art.
I'd like all three of you to answer this if you can. What's been the most surprising thing that you've learned so far in this project?
Well, I'll start, I guess. I know for me is, coming from a person who has been in love with cemeteries pretty much all their life. My uncle Jack actually taught here at Eastern, and his wife Dorothy and I used to go when I was very little to cemeteries. And so I had this sort of background thought that I knew so much about the Charleston cemeteries, and I had this great knowledge. And then you go, and you go, and you go, and what you start to learn is the same thing you learn when you start to teach. You thought you really knew a subject till you have to teach others. And then you realize you've really start to learn. So I hope I've learned a whole lot more that will really be elucidating and edifying to the hearers.
Okay. Charlotte, what have you learned?
I went out one night looking for subjects for photographs with my husband, and we were in Old City, and there is a tombstone that has writing on 4 sides, and it's a lot of writing. My husband is one of those men who cannot pass up a good read. This one he couldn't take to the bathroom with him, so he had to do it right there. And he was busy puzzling it out while I was wandering around taking photographs. And all of a sudden, he called out something to the effect of, laid low by the hand of his own son-in-law. So clearly there was a story here, and he was fascinated by it, and I was too, and we went home, and I think we stayed up way later than we should have on the internet, discovering the story of a man who had in fact been killed in a brawl with his own son-in-law. This happened in the early 1840s, I want to say. And it happened in the place which is now an antique shop on the square, used to be Bob's bookstore. And it was just that whole process of figuring out what the background story to that was that made us, as relative newcomers to the area, feel like, okay, now we're becoming part of this town. And that was a good surprise.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Very
by the way.
cool.
Randy, you got to top that one.
Well, I can't top that one, but I would like to tag on to that and say that the Academy of Lifelong Learning did host Dick Hummel, and he presented a first-person portrayal of that incident when Bob's bookstore was there in that corner, and we had a fabulous turnout. It was just, that's what brings stories alive, is first-person acting when you have a real story to tell. So, surprising to me, the variety of people that are interested in this sort of thing, because, cemeteries do have sort of a negative emotion attached to them, or they can, but, we have taken vacations out to the East Coast, and there's obviously some of the oldest cemeteries and tombstones in the United States, and there's just so much to learn, and so it's fun to talk about this event with all kinds of people, because they're surprised, they're excited, they're interested, they're puzzled. So,
well, and jumping in on what Marita has said there, the Arts Council proposed this event, but we've got partners in the Coles County Genealogical Society and in the Historical Society, and we found people from all over the community coming together. And that is perhaps one of the great things about this event, when we can find a wide range of interests converging upon a subject.
Okay.
That's been exciting.
That's interesting. I'll go back to Kevin real quick. At the end of the walk on the 28th, there's going to be some reenactments. Could you go into some detail
There
about
will be.
what
So
that'll be?
You've kind of been touching on, the idea that we do want to do some history as well.
Yeah.
So, and even before we get to Old City, when we're in the actual first walk in Mound and Roselawn, we will actually be talking quite a bit about the history of certain individuals, while highlighting the art on their stone, of course. But also, if you're going to talk about Paul Sargent, for example, who was at least
Lincoln
quite
Sargent Farm,
locally
yeah.
famous artist. You should tell a little bit about his life. You should talk a little bit about who he was, and then we'll also talk about where the stone we think came from. In his case, they believe it actually comes from the family farm, which is located just a little bit south and east of Charleston here. So,
Yeah.
and it's a raw boulder, and it's meant to be in its natural state. And I think if you've seen a lot of Mr. Sargent's works, you know that he was very much a naturalist. And so I think it makes sense, and that's part of what we want to be able to highlight is the fact that so often a tombstone makes sense if you know something of the story of a person. And I think also, and I kind of want to tie into what both of these fine ladies have talked about a little bit and say that art is so subjective. And when you were talking about the photo contest and how it opened your eyes to the fact that how people view art is different. And so that's really maybe bigger than even the idea of, okay, just I can look at this and know what this means or that is, to just open people's eyes, to really let them say for the first time, oh, wow, maybe that's art. And we're even going to argue that literally the landscape of the cemetery can be art, that the plantings can be art, that the curvature of the roads, the sinuousness and things like this, all of this can contribute to the artfulness of the cemetery. So I don't know if I really answered the question.
No, you did, because I think it makes people think, and I could go back to what me and Lisa both at the beginning of the year had no idea that this was even a thing, and now if you Google cemetery walks, every community in America has something about them, and I think it's become it's part of our society that that I guess Coles County is catching up to with this first walk, and that which leads me in is this something you think will be an annual event or a biannual event, or have you thought? I know everybody's getting to the 28th, but have you thought past that?
Jeff, we're optimists here.
That's what we like to hear.
That's right. We don't know. That'll take a debrief, but there's certainly
if there's interest and it goes well, and I think it will, I don't see why we wouldn't do it again.
Well, if you have 47 photos, and if all those people come, I mean, you could maybe hit your number of 50 plus. And
I'm hoping.
I mean, if it's a really nice day, maybe you're going to be up to 200 or 300 people. And Kevin, you better be loud.
Well, I am loud. I can promise you that. But I would say too that there was at least some preliminary talk of in the future expanding into some of the other large cemeteries in the county and doing a walk in that cemetery and looking at this art specific to that site.
Because you've got 3 cemeteries here in Charleston you're going to do, but there's how many cemeteries in Coles County? I can't even guesstimate.
It depends on your count. About 114 or so.
So you have like at least 111 more to go.
Hey, Jeff, we also wanted to mention that with our grant from Illinois Humanities, we have some accommodations for folks that may have some mobility issues.
Okay.
So we have a Kubota for rides for those that may have difficulty walking, and we have chairs along the way for those that
Need to sit every once in a
would
while.
appreciate a place to sit.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question that just came to my mind. So, again, I want all 3 of you to answer. How many cemeteries have you visited, Kevin? I mean, you think? Give us an estimate.
About 5,000.
Holy cow.
Okay, well, I'm not really outclassed by that, but you don't mean locally, I'm assuming.
No, just anywhere. I mean, you're from, you said you're from Canada, so we can talk about that a little bit.
I have been to cemeteries in every single place I lived, and I will tell you that during the first year I was married, my husband was teaching and I was not, and I was often lonely. And I actually spent a lot of time in a beautiful little hill cemetery in Vermont, and I adopted a grave. And I just went to visit that person. Something about the grave of this young woman who had died very young, I was hoping it wasn't going to happen to me, attracted my imagination.
All right.
And I used to go and visit her from time to time. So I've probably been to 3 or 4 dozen cemeteries.
I don't know that I could put a number on it, but I too have visited cemeteries in every place I've lived. I'm just curious about what the story is behind that.
So you don't only look for the art, you look for the story, which I think ties this whole program together.
Yeah, to the
right?
history part of it, for sure.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we got a few minutes left, so I want to give us a recap of where we've been, and then we'll go into some unrelated questions. But the event is September 28th here in Charleston. Give us some of the details, Kevin, or whoever wants to talk again.
Well, I mean, as I said before, and there's so many different things going on with this. There already was the photo competition, and there are going to be several displays, one at the Historic Depot in Mattoon and here at the library on campus as well. But for our event that day, we will start in the morning at the Charleston Public Library.
People can just show up at the door, right?
Yeah, they can. I think you can buy tickets even at the door if you haven't got them in advance.
Though we'd prefer that they pick them up in advance through the
is better,
Academy
yeah.
of Lifelong Learning.
All right, Marita.
So we know, and we can get you coffee.
Yeah, and that way we know how many people are coming. It also will help if you do buy ahead of time, so we know how many printouts we need and the maps and these kind of things. So definitely, if you can do it ahead of time, we would love that. Then there will, be a lunch on your own for a little bit. I believe we have a few local restaurants that are going to be giving a discount for people who are on the walk, which is great. After that lunch, we'll go to Mountain Cemetery and Roselawn and do a walk portion where we'll try to put into action what we've learned in the classroom. There will then be a ceremony at the circle in the cemetery where we're going to have bagpipes, which will be very cool. So we'll bring some of the music into the art aspect. And then we'll go lastly over to Old City for a couple reenactments and just a touch more on the art in the cemetery.
That's September 28th here in Charleston. Maria, I guess give your contact information in case someone's interested in tickets or find out more.
Would love to have your tickets purchased in advance. Please call the Academy at 581-5114. Tickets are $10. And as Kevin and Charlotte said, it's really a courtesy to the speakers and the groups if you purchase ahead so that we can plan for seating and programs and coffee.
There you go.
Look forward to seeing you there.
We'd like to say, let's set a goal of at least 100 people. I think 100
Yeah,
people.
I think that's fair. I think I'm going.
There you go.
Sounds
Excellent.
cool. Yeah, it sounds really
We'd
cool.
love to have you, Annalise. That'd be great.
We're going to go right down the line. Unrelated questions. Is there a food you have to eat weekly? There's something you can't live without every week.
Oh, that's a great question. Probably apples.
Charlotte?
Cherries.
Cheeseburger.
Nice.
Hey, Lacey?
Nice. I really like lettuce and tomato, so like
That's all right. That's all right.
I need that.
How many countries have you visited?
4?
3.
3.
Like actually stayed in like
Just
one
visit.
other. Yeah,
Why do
one.
you have to be so difficult on this?
I don't know, because I was like in one country for like 9 hours, so I don't know if that
Are you a
counts.
meal prepper? I see these people post stuff on their Facebook. They prep for the entire week. I barely know what I'm doing
No.
today.
No.
Charlotte?
Oh, good Lord, no.
Absolutely not.
I pretend.
Pumpkin spice, yes or no?
No.
Never.
Overdone.
I do like it.
I
sorry.
like it, but I believe you're correct.
I like it, but it's overdone.
Now,
Cookies, come on.
This is the one question that ties into
No,
the
yeah.
cemetery. Are you superstitious?
I am not.
Definitely not.
Kind of.
Yeah, I am.
I'm way past kinda, yes. All right. All-time favorite president? You can say there's no wrong answer.
Barack Obama.
I'm afraid that's mine too.
John Adams.
I guess in my lifetime would be Barack Obama, but I do like Kennedy, like learning about Kennedy. So
James K. Polk is the greatest American president. Do some
Okay.
research on him. People don't know about him. He's the greatest president of all
That'll be
time.
your next show, won't it, Jeff?
There you go. I need to find someone who knows about that. So I appreciate all three of you coming in. I think we've learned some stuff. The Art Cemetery Walk is September 28th. We appreciate Carolyn putting this thing together. She's out there in the hallway. Hopefully we did well. We'll know here in a minute. So everybody have a great day and a great walk. And this is WEIU.